I woke up to sunlight spilling across the polished hardwood floors of my Manhattan apartment, the kind of golden glow that makes everything look expensive. My French press hissed quietly on the counter as I poured myself coffee, its warmth seeping through my palms. My phone buzzed on the marble island, a notification lighting up the screen. Normally, I'd ignore it until after my morning routine. But something about the preview froze me. It was a tag on a viral video. The caption read, "Remember when we used to tease her for this?" I tapped it before I could think twice. The video was old footage, me, 15 years old, sitting cross-legged on the floor of my parents' garage, surrounded by scraps of fabric and a cheap sewing machine. I could hear the laughter of my cousins in the background, the mocking commentary. The video had over 2 million views. The comments were split, some laughing, some defending me, others saying things like, "Look at her now, she's killing it." I set the phone down carefully, my nails clicking against the counter. I glanced around my apartment. The designer furniture, the original artwork, the framed cover of Forbes Women where my company had been featured last spring. They mocked my hobby once. Now, the whole world knew exactly what that hobby had built. And apparently, so did the people who laughed. I was 15 the first time I heard someone call my dream pathetic. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind of day most kids spent at the mall or watching movies. I was in the garage, windows open, warm summer air carrying the smell of cut grass. My little sewing machine rattled on the folding table as I pieced together scraps from a thrift store bin into what I swore would be a dress someday. "Seriously, Emma?" My cousin Chloe's voice rang out as she stepped inside, holding a soda. "This is what you do for fun. You're like the weird garage girl." Her laugh was light, but it landed like a punch. Behind her, 2 other cousins peeked in, smirking. "Who's gonna wear that?" one of them asked, pointing at the lopsided fabric. "Nobody's gonna pay for this stuff. It's like a waste of time." I remember my face getting hot, the sting behind my eyes. My hands kept moving, threading, stitching because stopping would have meant they won. That night, I overheard my dad talking to my mom. "She needs to focus on something practical," he said. "Fashion? Sewing? That's not a career. She should join the debate team or something." I went to bed staring at the ceiling, tears sliding silently into my hair. The next morning, my grandmother came to visit. She found me sulking in the garage and sat down on the stool beside me. "You love this, don't you?" she asked gently, picking up a scrap of fabric. I nodded, unable to speak without crying. She smiled, pulling a small velvet pouch from her purse. Inside was a delicate silver thimble, its edges worn smooth. "This was mine when I was your age," she said. "You can let their words stop you, or you can stitch your future, one piece at a time." Her words planted something in me that day. That night, I packed the thimble into my backpack like a lucky charm and signed up for a free online course on sewing techniques. I didn't know how, but I knew I'd prove them wrong. Every single one of them. I started small, painfully small. At 16, my studio was still the garage, but I had upgraded to a better machine thanks to babysitting money. I spent hours watching YouTube tutorials, my earbuds in, my hands covered in chalk and thread. Sometimes I stayed up past midnight, the whir of the machine filling the quiet house. It wasn't glamorous. I broke needles. I bled on fabric more times than I could count. I cried when a dress came out uneven after hours of work. But every failure taught me something, and every tiny win kept me going. By 17, I posted my first picture online, a simple tote bag with hand-stitched patterns. I sold 3 of them in the first week. It was only $60, but I remember staring at that PayPal notification like it was a lottery ticket. I kept posting. I learned to photograph my work better, write better captions, and package orders so they felt like gifts. Strangers started tagging me, showing off my pieces. My follower count crept into the thousands. When I graduated high school, I faced my biggest decision yet: college or my craft. My parents wanted me to choose a safe path. They had already picked out a local business program. "Emma, you need a real degree," my dad said, crossing his arms. But I had saved up nearly $8,000 by then, enough to take a risk. I told them I'd take a gap year to think, but in reality, I went all in. I found a mentor online, a woman named Lauren who had built her own small clothing brand. She was everything I wanted to be: confident, creative, running her own show. She taught me about sourcing materials, negotiating with suppliers, even the boring stuff like taxes and shipping logistics. There were nights I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, my fingers raw from sewing, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. Then one day, my first big order came in: 25 custom jackets for a boutique in Los Angeles. I worked like a machine, fueled by coffee and adrenaline. When the order was delivered and the boutique posted about it, my follower count doubled overnight. By the end of that year, I was making more money than my friends working part-time jobs combined. But I didn't brag. When family gatherings rolled around, I smiled politely and said, "Yeah, just keeping busy." I kept my success quiet, partly out of fear they'd still dismiss it, partly because I wanted the reveal to be on my terms. In private, I was building something unstoppable, one stitch, one sale, one late night at a time. It happened on a Thursday morning, 2 days after that old video went viral. I was in my design studio, a loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Soho. Bolts of fabric lined one wall, mood boards covered in sketches and swatches filled another. My team was in the middle of a product shoot when my phone rang. It was Chloe. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me, that 15-year-old girl still holding back tears, told me to answer. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Emma," she said quickly, "we saw the video. Everyone's talking about it. We didn't know you were, like, doing this." "This?" I asked, glancing around the studio. My assistant was steaming a silk blazer, a photographer adjusting lights. This was my empire. "Can we come by?" she asked. "The whole family's in town this weekend. We'd love to see what you've built." For a moment, I almost said no. But then I thought about every laugh, every dismissive comment, every time they told me I was wasting my time. "Sure," I said, my tone even. "Come tomorrow." The next day, they arrived: my parents, Chloe, 2 other cousins. I greeted them in the lobby of my building, heels clicking against the marble. They looked around, clearly surprised. "This is where you work?" my dad asked, eyes narrowing slightly. "Work and live," I said, leading them upstairs. When the elevator doors opened, they stepped into my world, the sunlight streaming across cutting tables, the smell of fresh leather and lavender candles, racks of finished garments lined up for shipping. My Forbes Women cover was framed on the wall, next to a plaque that read Inc. 500, fastest growing companies. No one spoke for a moment. "Wow." Chloe finally breathed. "Emma, this is yours?" "All of it," I said calmly, letting the words settle. "I own this company. I employ 12 people. And last quarter, we crossed 7 figures in revenue." Their faces were priceless: shock, awe, guilt. My mother's eyes welled with tears. My dad cleared his throat, looking suddenly older. You did all this with sewing?" one cousin asked, incredulous. "With sewing," I confirmed, smiling faintly. "With the same hobby you all thought was silly. The same one you laughed at." No one laughed now. Chloe swallowed hard. "Emma, we were kids. We didn't know." "I know," I said, holding up a hand. "And I'm not angry anymore. But you should understand. I built this because you told me I couldn't. Because every time someone mocked me, I worked harder." I walked them over to a display table where my latest collection was laid out. "People wait weeks to get these pieces now. We sell out every drop." My dad finally spoke, his voice soft. "Emma, we're proud of you." "Really?" I let the silence linger before nodding. "I'm proud of me too." I led them to the lounge area, low leather sofas, a coffee table stacked with fashion magazines featuring my work. My assistant quietly brought in sparkling water and left us alone. For the first time in years, they all looked uncomfortable. It was strange, watching them sit where buyers and investors usually sat, their eyes darting to the framed awards, the polished concrete floors, the photos from runway shows. "I want to say something," my dad began, clearing his throat. We were wrong. About everything. We should have supported you instead of making you feel small. Hearing those words felt surreal. 15-year-old me would have begged for them. But I wasn't 15 anymore. I appreciate that, I said, my tone calm but firm. But an apology isn't enough. If we're going to have a real relationship, things have to change. Chloe frowned slightly. Like what? I took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Like respect. No more mocking what people love, no more tearing each other down. If any of you want to be in my life, in my real life, you need to celebrate wins, not laugh at them. They exchanged glances, but I wasn't finished. I also want you to do something for yourselves. Each of you. Pursue one thing you've been too scared to try, because of what people might think. Start that business, take that class, write that book, whatever it is. My mother's eyes softened. Emma, that's fair. It's necessary, I replied. Because I don't want to sit at family dinners listening to everyone gossip and complain about how life is unfair. I want to sit with people who are building something too, whatever that looks like. There was a long pause before Chloe spoke. I always wanted to start a little jewelry shop, she admitted quietly. But I never thought anyone would take it seriously. Then start it, I said simply. And I'll be your first customer, but only if you mean it. She nodded, blinking fast. When they left later that afternoon, the air felt lighter. I had set my boundaries without anger, and for the first time, I felt like they saw me, really saw me. Not as the girl in the garage, but as the woman who built something worth respecting. Weeks passed, and, to my surprise, they actually followed through. Chloe sent me photos of her first jewelry pieces, simple, imperfect, but full of heart. My mom texted me one evening to say she had signed up for a painting class at the community center. Even my dad, stubborn as ever, started volunteering at a local business incubator, mentoring young entrepreneurs. It wasn't perfect overnight, but it was movement, real, genuine change. One Saturday, I sat in my studio alone, the sunlight pouring in as I worked on a new collection. My hands moved on instinct, guiding fabric under the needle, the soft hum filling the quiet space. On the shelf near my workstation sat the silver thimble my grandmother had given me all those years ago. I picked it up, running my thumb over the worn metal. Back then, it had felt like the smallest of gifts, a token. But now, it felt like a prophecy fulfilled. I thought about that girl in the garage, scared, embarrassed, yet fiercely determined. I wished I could tell her that every tear, every long night, every cruel laugh would be worth it. My phone buzzed with a new order notification. Another collection nearly sold out. Another step further from the girl they doubted, closer to the woman I had fought to become. I slipped the thimble onto my finger for luck, smiling to myself. They mocked my hobby once, I whispered into the quiet room. Now it's the reason I'm a millionaire.